Hello, happy Thursday. I am Jade Scott. This is GrowthRx and we are live at lunch today with Adam Pitt, osteopath, business owner and very passionate mentor. He's joining us today to talk about a few difficult patients, some cases that we're going to go through, and basically just his passion for mentoring in general so that we can collaborate together and assist with some professional growth. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So we've been talking a little bit offline of late, and you had some difficult cases, and we had a bit of a chat about sharing these through the group, because obviously there's so many times that we find ourselves in the consultation room in difficult situations, and we're there on our own, and we sort of have to fake it till we make it, I guess. But yeah, I guess you wanted to go through some of your examples, and particularly with your team that you've had of late, and you've got some fancy slides to show us as well. Yeah,
that's the plan. And we're live on Facebook. We're going to try and get to any comments or feedback that you guys have got, or if there's any questions, make sure you shoot them in. We'll try to get to them. It's a little bit hard with Zoom and Facebook, but we'll do our best. So looking forward to it.
And if we do happen to drop out, we'll jump back in one more time. And if we have some tech issues, which is bound to happen when we go live, then we will pre-record it and make sure it gets added to the group. But I'm very excited to hear what you have for us today.
Yeah. So the thing that happened recently in my practice was the thing that sort of sparked this conversation or ignited this conversation was we had someone that was quite difficult. And it really rattled my team, even a seasoned performer. He was quite rattled by this. So it really sparked the conversation about difficult patients and what you can do in those circumstances. And so that's when I spoke to you, Jade, about how I was planning on talking to my team about it. I prepared this work, and so you obviously thought it was a great idea, but that rather than just share it with my team, we'd share it with all 1,400 of your allied health providers worldwide, which I thought, absolutely, I put the effort into the work, so why not? Let's do it.
Perfect. All right. So where do you want to start?
Well, so you're not going to ask me about Crocs today.
Oh, yes. Okay, so we probably do need to find out a little bit more about you first. And I have my 3 hard-hitting questions, as you know. The first one, which tells a lot about people.
I'm a little bit more prepped for this time.
So, as you just said, what is your take on Crocs?
So, my take on Crocs is I absolutely love Crocs, but not for the reason that you might think. I love Crocs because of the entertainment that they provide, and because of your passionate hate for them. That's why I love Crocs.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And furthermore, I can tell that you're a very passionate person, because anyone that has that much effort about shoe wear and that much conviction in their hatred of something like that, I can tell is a very passionate person.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing my passion against my hate for them. Question number 2, pineapple on pizza says a lot about someone.
So not on mine, but on my kids, yes. That's my answer.
Okay, sure.
I don't have an issue with it.
All right. And my third question for you, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
So my answer, last time we spoke that I wasn't particular, you caught me really off guard, but this time, I saw a movie, Sonic the Hedgehog, the other day, and I used to play it as a kid on my Sega Mega Drive, and his superpower is amazing speed, to the point where he can actually function 1,000 times faster than anyone else, so that it's almost like time stands still for him. So that's my answer. I'd love for time to kind of stand still while I zoomed around and got everything I wanted to get done at light speed.
And in true GrowthRx style, you know that we love recognising the contributions of other people. What is your definition of leadership, and I guess what does that mean to you?
The definition of a leader is evolving, And I think the work that you're doing with that, I'm really excited to see where you go with it, because being a leader 30 years ago is different to what it means to be a leader right now. And I absolutely believe that. I think for me, leadership is about leading by example. It's about caring for the person that you're leading. It's about understanding what their goals are as well as your goals are. It's about a lot of things, but it's really important to me, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about how to be the best leader I can be.
And I think the great thing about this group is that we don't necessarily have an audience of just osteopaths, which is probably what you would be used to. There's physios watching, chiropractors, podiatrists, nutritionists, naturopaths, psychologists. So it's great to just get a different perspective on some of the soft skills, communication, relationship building, trust, and all the sorts of things that we talked about that are invaluable in the treatment room. But obviously we're all not human, and we don't all have superpowers in the treatment room other than healing, probably, for some people. But I think that's why it's important to talk about some of these difficult instances. And I know that there's a lot of students watching, so hopefully you can give us some great advice for them.
Yeah, well, that's the plan. And if you, I can just see that there was 30 people, there's 35 now people watching. If you're watching, give us a wave, give us a thumbs up if the sound's working, you can see us okay. That'd be awesome, because we're going to get cracking on with this presentation. Sound good, Jade?
Good.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen with you. I think that's going to hopefully work, right? Yep, can you see that okay?
Yeah.
So I guess to give you a bit of background before I go into detail, the patient that we had the other day, I had the pleasure of being standing in the waiting room in that reception area while this person was ringing to book their appointment, and they pre-emailed us with a list, and they then already called earlier that morning, and then they were calling again to check that the treating practitioner had read the email, and we were confident that we were going to be able to help this patient. At which point I wasn't on the phone, but I could hear this conversation happening, and I was shaking my head. And then, spoiler alert, this patient ended up being very difficult. So that's what's prompted this presentation. So the first slide, the first point, that goes for receptionists, for practice managers, it goes for practitioners of all types, is to identify the little yellow flags that you get when someone, if they're being difficult before they've even stepped foot into your consultation room, chances are they're going to be pretty difficult. So this person, and if your front of staff or your reception, or if you've already got if you don't have a front desk but you've got a really long email before you've even seen this patient, these are the signs that you want to identify really early. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, totally.
Maybe give us a thumbs up or a hand up if you would agree with that. You can do it in the Facebook group. We can sort of, there is a bit of a delay, but we can see that, any comments that you're making. So because identifying someone that's going to be like this early on really gives you a chance to what I call armor up. And I think if you know that you're going into a difficult situation, there's some strategies that you can take to really deal with that without having it really impacting you.
I think you're right. When we talk about that armor up, it's basically preparing yourself. And if you can anticipate it, you can own it. And I think often whether it be the stereotypes, whether it be female, too short, too old, particularly young graduates when they first start, you get that stigma attached to you're a new grad and you're too young, and people will make those, form those opinions of you. So if you know that going into a consultation straight up, you can say, I've been working for 2 years in a clinic in the city, or those sorts of things. Or if you are a female and you've got a huge guy, and I used to deal with it all the time. I used to get that judgment that we're not strong enough being females. And often I would say, you know,
Yeah.
I might look small, I might be a woman, but I got strong elbows. And if you can anticipate it from the very beginning, you're kind of adding that armor and you're removing that.
You're adding the armor and you're combating it head on. So, I mean, it gives you the opportunity, if you know that that's going to be the case, and you think that there's a possibility, you can actually pre-objection handle that. Like we've got probably possibly some of the smallest practitioners in the world working here, and they just, that's what they do. They'll say, yeah, I might look small, but you just watch out, pretty much. So that's the first thing that you can do, and then the next thing. I think that's working.
Yep.
The next thing I've written is to don't try and be something that you're not. So one of the common things that one of the common questions is in an initial consultation is, have you received treatment for this before? You know, have you seen a physio, chiro, osteo, massage, acupuncture, dry needling, cupping, whatever? Have you done anything before? And often this actually happens relatively frequently in my experience. I don't know if you're the same, Jade, where you have a patient that says, yeah, I saw X practitioner and they were amazing. They fixed me in one go. They did this adjustment and I skipped and danced out of bed. Have you had that?
Constantly, yeah.
Constantly, yeah.
If something works, it's human nature to want the same thing replicated again. And if they're paying for it, they want value for money. They want, you know, a lot of people want a quick fix and quick wins.
So I'm here to tell you, don't try and reproduce it. I've done that for you, and I'll tell you, you'll fail, because you will never reproduce that manipulation that did, or that stretch, or that exercise, or whatever that practitioner did. Don't try and be something that you're not. What I would encourage you to do is celebrate that practitioner and say, wow, that's amazing. I'm so glad that practitioner was able to achieve that for you. But then don't fall into the trap. It's a trap, I'll tell you now. What I would suggest you do, rather than trying to reproduce what they've done, focus on what you do. So celebrate the amazing adjustment that practitioner did and say, that's fantastic. I'm so glad they were able to achieve that for you. What I do is I do X. For a problem like this, I find this is the best effect. And I'll actually, once again, be straight up and say, no two practitioners are the same. No two treatments are the same. And what I'm going to do is going to be different to what you've experienced in the past. But this is what I'm going to do. This is my expected outcome. And this is where we're going to get started. So then you're rather than trying to catch that consultation, you've acknowledged the great work that other practitioner has done, and you then taken charge. You're driving that consultation the way you want to. You may not live up to their expectations, but you're better off trying. You're better off doing it your way.
And I think what I'm hearing you saying is the key thing here is working out what a patient's expectations are, and then communicating that really, really clearly. Because if they've got a certain expectation that you're going to do what somebody else did and then you don't do it, disappointment is certainly going to set in, and you're going to find it very, very hard to build a relationship with that patient. So what do you do then when you've got, Johnny, middle-aged man who comes in and says, I will need my neck cracked today. And when you don't deliver that, I mean, obviously you're a little bit more experienced, you can navigate your way around that. But what sort of scripting would you suggest when somebody desperately wants something and it's not the type of treatment that they're needing?
That's an awesome question. And I'd love to get people watching this feedback if you want to comment in your experiences with that. And that is, I think, a really common thing. I've actually not only done that from other practitioners where I haven't been able to achieve it. I've done it for myself, where I've done something in a previous consultation that was really effective, or maybe I got that C5, 6 to pop last time, this time it didn't. So the biggest thing is, in my opinion, is to just really focus on the management plan, the goals, and make sure that you're addressing those expectations. And that might mean, look, I had a patient recently who every time I'd seen him, I would adjust his neck. He had no predisposing factors. There was no risk signs. All testing was clear. And he had this sort of, desk job, manipulating the neck, worked really well. And then he came and saw me and said, "Oh, how have you been since, what's been happening since I saw you last?" He said, "Oh, I was in hospital. I had a blood clot and, got this compromised system." He'd been traveling and he'd come back and this had happened. And I said, "Well, I know you love having your neck cracked, but unfortunately it's now not worth the risk. We always talk about risk and benefit ratios of, if the benefit is outweighed by the risk, then we simply don't do it." And I had to have that conversation with him saying, "Look, I know it works and that's the benefit, but the risk could be catastrophic. And I'm not willing to take that risk, so I'm not doing it, by the way. And nor should you let anyone else do it."
Yeah,
I don't know if that...
It is. It's a roll-on effect of finding out where the expectation is, communicating why you are or why you are not doing that particular technique that they want, and then education is, I guess, that final step of the puzzle in making sure that somebody does feel like they've been heard. And yes, I understand it is that's what you want right now, but I'm going to educate you why that's probably not the best thing for you and your safety right now. It might give a good outcome, but at the end of the day, I think safety comes first. I think if you always set it back to that, ultimately that's why we choose the decisions, the treatments that we do, and the treatment plans and the management and the exercises that we give.
It can be really hard with if you've got a particularly sort of firm patient, especially if they're a difficult patient, and that's their expectation, that you're going to adjust their neck and they've just informed you that they've had all these arterial issues in their neck. That's a really hard conversation to have, but you've got to have it. You've just got to armour up, go in with confidence and conviction, which is what you've been talking about a lot, which is absolutely, you believe that that's the best thing for that patient 100%. And
it's also not putting yourself at risk. Often as practitioners, we get bullied into things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. And if you're not equipped, or if you don't have the confidence, as I was saying, in some of my past huddles, deliver it with conviction. If you believe that it's unsafe, you can't be bullied into it by a patient, even though they are the ones spending the money. And I think that's where the conviction comes in, and the education. But if you build the trust and you build rapport and you have got that relationship, it's very difficult in that first consult, which is what we're going to go into next. But when you don't really know someone, you don't have the relationship, and they're very clear about what their expectations are, it really does become hard to navigate around. But ultimately, you sort of have to choose yourself first.
Yeah, 100%. And one of my slides coming up is about expectations, and it's actually my favourite slide. But we'll have to wait. I'll put you in suspense about that slide. The next one, the next slide is, from memory, it's sort of delay on it as well. Can you see that okay?
That's why it's important to talk about.
So next slide is, I can hear your sound on your phone.
Yeah, I know. I can't turn it. Oh, hang on. Here we go.
So the next flag for people watching is the "I've been everywhere" man. So if you've had a patient that has been to every practitioner in your region, there should be some yellow flags happening there as well. So give us a thumbs up or a wave if you've seen or experienced that. And if you've experienced it, then we'll talk about it more.
You'll have to check your phone for the
comment. So we've got Kyle Freeman from California. We've got Amanda, Willow, Claire.
Kyle's the TikTok expert. He's going to be talking on Live at Lunch next month. Hey, cool. Kyle.
So we've got Louisa, who deals with this all the time as an ex-phys. Yeah, cool. So we're obviously preaching to the choir here, Jade. So have you ever had a patient that when you said that you've asked that question, have you seen anyone else with this problem? And they go, I've seen the osteo, I've seen the physio, I've seen the chiro, I've seen another chiro, I've seen a massage therapist, I've had some acupuncture, and the list, you're typing this all out and you're thinking, is this list going to end? Have you had that?
Constantly, and I think it's those people, and the best word to describe those people, there's two words: they're searching and they're desperate.
Yes.
And they're also very, very hard to please. So if you're,
well, this absolutely, but if you can get through to this person, then you potentially create a fan for life. Because if you work out a way to be that what that person is searching for, then that can be your biggest win of the week, biggest win of the year. So I would encourage people watching this not to completely write people off like this. I've had some of my biggest wins are from people like this, but it is definitely a flag, and it is something that once again you're not trying to be someone that you're not. You're just going to do what you do with conviction, and I think in a patient like this, it's important to outline management plans, but in a patient like this, it's even more important that you really clearly define the process that you have in your practice.
These people are crying out for communication because somewhere along the line, a practitioner, and excuse the pun, hasn't grabbed this consultation by the balls and set out a really clear treatment plan for that patient. There's something somewhere that's missing. And exactly as you said, if you fill that hole or fill that void with the right communication, the right education, some of these patients do become the most loyal that you will have. And they become your raving fans. And then next minute, they're referring everybody to you.
And do you know what? Sometimes it's just listening. Like, that's it. I can't think of how many times a patient has said to me, thank you so much for listening. I've been to so many people and they just haven't listened. So that's the first point, is to listen. And listen doesn't just mean just listening. It means actually hearing, and sometimes actually listening is hearing the true deep meaning for why they're there. So they might have this chronic neck pain, but the real meaning that they're there is because they're tired all the time. They can't move. They can't do the things that they love, and just life sucks for them. And if you reflectively listen to that, if you reflect on that, and say, what I'm hearing is that your neck's sore, and that's why you're here, but things are really crap at the moment for you. That's then sometimes that's the point where you've listened to them, and it's more that it's not necessarily like they might have spoken to some people that listened to them, but they didn't get that. They didn't get that depth of how much this problem is impacting that person in their life.
Some people just want to be validated. Yeah. They just want their pain validated, or they just want, their emotions. It's about finding the emotional event. It's not about having a sore shoulder. It's that they can't pick up their 2-year-old baby. It's not that they've got a sore lower back. It's that they can't, be intimate with their husband. If you find the emotional event and you listen to them and you make them feel heard, then the connection is built. And then from there, something really beautiful happens. You form that practitioner-patient relationship, which is what it's all about, because our common ground is helping people. And if somebody's jumping from practitioner to practitioner, I'm not suggesting that they're not trying, but somewhere along the line, the communication has broken down, or they're just a very hard to please person. There are those two patients out there for sure. But I think, some people, as you were saying, by listening, people just want their words validated sometimes. And just by mirroring that back to them, and emotional interviewing is really, really important. There's a lot of practitioners that are invested in that at the moment. And I think it's really important to understand the value of listening and that skill
Yeah, so maybe if we call it hearing rather than listening, because you can listen and not hear. So that's honestly that in the last couple of years, I love my job, but that's what I love most is taking someone whose life sucks at the moment and they're unhappy for whatever reason, or they're tired, they're irritable, and their marriage is on the rocks, and they're frustrated at their kids all the time. To be able to give that person relief from tension and pressure, and then progress further into actually helping them get on top of things and then start feeling energized and just feeling themselves again. That's what's inspiring me, and that's what gets me up every morning, is to be able to achieve that. And I just want to say that we're really lucky to be able to do that. I think it's pretty rare if you go to a barbecue and you talk to people about their jobs. It's pretty rare that someone says, yeah, I actually really dig my job. I love it. I wake up every morning looking forward to what is to come. You're going to be that annoying person at the barbecue, the 1 in 15 that actually loves their job. Because most people go, oh yeah, I do this, and now I'm a bit over it, to be honest. That's the pretty common response. So we're super lucky that we've got a job and we can actually have that impact. And we can, not only can we make the promise that we're going to be able to help that person who's in that crappy state get out of it, but actually deliver and actually see it happen, which is special.
And as Brett Ween always says, it's the helper's high, isn't it? We get to change people's lives. We get to run off the adrenaline that comes from that in making a real impact. And that's what leadership is. It's just creating a meaningful change in somebody's life and delivering impact and meaning. And that's what we do every single day.
I'm really excited to show you my next slide.
I'm excited.
Because it's talking about expectations versus reality. So we touched on it just earlier, how important it is to address patients' expectations.
I'm distracted by the image.
It isn't hard, isn't it? I really enjoyed putting this presentation together because of that image. I hadn't seen it before, and I came across it and I thought, I've really got to share that. That is a very special image. The rake just does it for me, I think. And he's doing, but to his credit, he's doing it with conviction, right?
He's owning that.
He owned it, totally. So part of dealing with a difficult patient, it's any patient really, is knowing what their expectations are and meeting or exceeding them. Or if they're unrealistic expectations, then they need to be educated on that. It's so important. And it can be what makes or breaks a career. Right? Like if you're consistently not meeting or exceeding expectations, you're going to develop a bad reputation.
And it happens all the time though, isn't it? As we were saying before, just asking the question. And I don't think many people, and we do that as part of our initial case history, is what are you hoping to expect from this consultation today? And what are you hoping to expect short term and long term? Because if you don't know what that is and it's actually not delivered, we as practitioners and as human beings, we make assumptions. We make assumptions all the time. And often it's not even about the fact that, somebody has got a headache. It's that they can't read a book, or they can't, and that's the one thing that they love doing so much. So we assume that they want to get their head turning better again. But in actual fact, you've got to find again what that emotional event is that they're trying to get back to. Yeah.
So I had one case that was early on in my career that's always stood out to me when I think about this sort of thing. And what it was a patient came in with acute lower back pain, could hardly move, in intense pain, and I did what I always do. And then on the second consultation, I said, look, were you sore after treatment? How are you feeling now? And they proceeded to go off their head at me. And so so if this happens to you, you're probably going to be like me. where your immediate reaction is to say, there's the door, you don't have to be, go away. But I took a breath. I saw this lady's getting really angry at me. And so I said to her, I let her get it all out. And then I said to her, you seem really angry at me, and I'm really doing my best to help you. And that's all I said. And it kind of shifted things from there. Because what I found out was that even though this lady was in her 50s, she'd actually never experienced pain, or intense pain anyway, in her whole life. So she's very lucky. But her expectation going in was that I was going to fix her pain in one visit. And even though I'd said that I'm pretty sure, I pretty much always say, there's no miracles to perform today. You're not going to be fixed. I think she probably didn't necessarily hear that, and that was her expectation going in. So when I hadn't fixed her pain in one go, she blamed me. And the reality was, it turns out she had a severe lumbar disc bulge, and it was a significant injury. So her expectations of me were unrealistic. Her expectations of herself, her body, were unrealistic. So it can be a.
And I think it's a dangerous word, fix.
Yeah.
Fix means to totally relieve and to take away. And that's pretty much, we don't do that as practitioners. Gosh, we can try. I think we'd be sitting on a yacht in the Caribbean if we were fixing people. And even that notion through osteopathy and the foundations of philosophy coming way back to AT still, find it, fix it, leave it alone is what we're always taught. But now it sort of needs to be find it, address the predisposing and maintaining factors, support health rather than fix health or fix people, and communicate and manage, I suppose. But the word fix, there's so much stigma attached to it. People want these quick fixes, and we live in a disposable world where people can swipe left and new TVs come out and I want a new husband. It's a very, very fast-paced world, and now there is so much availability where if you're not fixing somebody and getting those quick wins initially, they're going to swipe left, they're going to move down to the physio or the chiro or the osteo down the road. So how do we get around that? Because obviously providing value and high value consultation is what's really, really important. But I always relate back to the benchmark symptom. Whether you like it or not, you have to provide value, and you have to find at least some sort of meaningful change in that first visit to win yourself over. And if you don't, you've got to explain it and you've got to educate it. Because if you leave somebody feeling no better, no increased range of motion, no decreased pain, or at the very least better educated, then why would they come? You're not an 8 or a 9 out of 10. And what I always say to our team, why would people pay for a 6 or a 5 out of 10 week in, week out when there's 10 out of 10s out there?
Yeah, totally agree. And while I was doing research for this presentation, there was an awesome video that came up. If you want to share it, if you haven't seen this video, it's going to sidetrack us a little bit, but you will be glad that you watched it.
Okay.
Rocket Mortgage understands that home.
Is that working?
Are you sharing your screen?
Hang on, we'll start again. That's technology for you. Hang on. All right, let's try that again.
This, just to give you a bit of introduction to this, is like I normally go to the gym a bit and do weights, and I haven't done it since coronavirus. So this is about how I feel right now when I feel my arms and look in the mirror.
All right, here comes
this.
Here it comes. Okay.
Okay, we can see that now.
What does home mean to me?
Can you make it louder?
One place, I can let my guard down. So I can just kick back and be totally comfortable in my own skin. You know what I'm saying? Rocket Mortgage understands that home is where I can be myself. That feels pretty darn good. So
where you feel the most comfortable, and Rocket Mortgage helps
I
you
think
feel
that's the
confident in financing that home with a personalized and convenient experience centered around you. Rocket
So I realise that that's not a super helpful video for the topic, but I just thought it was worthwhile.
That's good. That's good.
Bit of comment relief. So the next, where are we? Are you seeing my screen now?
Yep.
For some reason it doesn't like changing slides. Yeah, okay. So the next step is you've got someone in the consultation room. Hopefully you've screened and you've identified some yellow flags about this may or may not be a difficult patient. So in the consulting room, the key thing, I've got a couple of tips for you. The first one is what I touched on earlier, which is armoring up. So this is what I actually do myself, because early on, I found it quite difficult with patients that I found it quite draining at times, and I found that I'm a very empathetic person by nature, and I was really finding it difficult. And I've seen this in other people as well. And if you're one of these people, I would definitely encourage you to listen to this, because I've seen it end people's careers because they're so empathetic and they don't have the skill to armor up. And I don't like seeing people leave allied health because they just didn't develop that skill. So what I did early on was had a couple of patients. I remember being a student at Chatswood and having Marlon, one of our clinicians, say, I come out and I say, man, I'm so exhausted after that. And he taught me a technique where there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But what he taught me was about having a screen in front of me that is an energy screen. So it's like glass, so you can see through it and function around it. It's a pretty amazing screen, and it stops, because some people will give you energy and you feel like the consultation's a party, and others will feel like they sucked it right out of you. And then I've gone one step further and developed, because I've developed a technique to feel like I'm armored. So it's like you can say you can say things and you can be difficult, and that's going to go off my armor because I'm strong. I've gone into this consultation strong. If you're someone that's struggling with that, I would suggest that you maybe reach out. I mean, I'm happy if you want to PM me. I'm sure Jade, she's super helpful with this sort of stuff. But definitely reach out to someone around you if you're suffering from that. But if it's as simple as just making that decision that you are strong and that you're driving that consultation. The next thing in the consultation is if you've armored up and you've decided that you're driving that consultation, keeping it clinical is really helpful. That's my third tip, is keeping it clinical. If you have some people get really, I found for me it was the people that just talked a lot and tried to ask me lots of questions about my life, and that was one type of difficult patient. And by armoring up, by driving the consultation, and by keeping it clinical, it keeps it right on track. And what that sometimes means is respectfully interrupting a patient and saying, I really want to hear all about that, but what we really need to do now is this. And getting started on the consultation, talking about function, talking about movement, talking about diagnosis can really help a lot.
I think being one of those oversharers, I'm certainly a practitioner that was very chatty. I think you could hear me from 2 treatment rooms away. And it's part of the reason why I loved my job. So getting another chatty patient in there and talking, I think I found almost like there was less pressure because the relationship was there.
Yeah.
But I certainly know what you mean about being able to create a bit of a barrier between yourself and what you choose to take on, because ultimately as practitioners, that's what empathy is. It is being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And when you're talking about the armor and almost the burnout that we see at the moment, from my perspective, empathy is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. It's understanding how they might feel and how that pain might be affecting them from day to day. Compassion, on the other hand, is where we've blurred the line. Compassion, by definition, means suffering with and sharing pain together. So if you are a compassionate practitioner, and don't get me wrong, there are times in our lives where we need these beautiful virtues. Sharing compassion with our family members and the people that we love, and when they're in pain, when our children and loved ones are in pain, we share that. But compassion, if you ask me, with a practitioner-patient relationship is going too far.
Yeah, I agree.
Empathy is wonderful, but compassion, sharing in a patient's pain and suffering with, means that two people are now in pain and two people are suffering. And I believe this blurred line between empathy and compassion is what is driving health professionals to burnout, because compassion is in fashion right now. It's the new it word when it comes to coronavirus and all of those sorts of things. Empathy, above all empathy, but compassion, keep it sacred almost. Know when giving too much of yourself is too much, and know when you've done it, how you can actually reset and sort of,
Well, that's actually exactly what my next slide is how to stop it from emotionally draining you. And like I said, it's ended careers that I've observed if you don't develop that skill. And the burnout is real, and it's something that people are talking about a lot in this time is burnout. And it's really interesting to see that even people that have not been working over the past 8 weeks are feeling burnt out. And I think that burnout is an emotional and mental state that you can get in from having there's lots of things that can contribute to that, but the main thing is that your thoughts and mind is really churning over too much. And in terms of a clinical setting in the consulting room, if you're investing everything in that patient's success, and you're running late because you've done those extra couple of techniques, and you've followed up with a phone call, and you come in early for them, or you stayed late, you've gone the extra 10 miles for this patient, there's a couple of things that I'm going to say. One is, like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what makes you probably good at. It's probably what's attracted you to becoming an allied health provider. But the problem with it is that you want to do this for a long time. You want to help a lot of people, and it can lead to burnout, and you can feel wrecked at the end of the day. And by the way, the ones, in my experience, often that you went that extra 10 miles for are often the most difficult. And they're often the ones that appreciate it the least.
Patients will certainly take, whilst we get so much from them, there are a lot of patients that will take as well. And I think it's about grounding yourself and knowing your limitations, and that is physical limitations and emotional and mental limitations. How much of what you take home from the treatment room, and it's the mental load. It's not the physical side of treating so many patients or 10, 20 patients in a day. It's what you take home with you, because that load that you carry is just as heavy. And that's the difference. And that's the empathy that we need to offer as business owners and leaders and peers, is to understand that burnout is not in a physical sense like it used to be back in the 50s. Hard labour, bricklaying, concreting, going to work, working, a 60-hour week. You can get like mental fatigue and from working 2 hours on a really difficult patient.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by?
Yeah, feeling wrecked after one consultation it's not good.
So what would you say to new graduates who, obviously this gets better over time, and we get better at this just in human nature, in life experiences, we get better at this with age. Not to suggest that some younger ones don't do it, but I think in that first year out, when you've got patients and you don't really know how to deal with this sort of stuff. What is your advice? What are the best things that a younger, new professional can do to not bear this burden, I suppose?
I've got a few tips. The first one is what we've discussed. Armour up, run the consultation, keep it clinical, stick to the time. If you're running 30-minute consultations, 40-minute consultations, 20-minute consultations, 1 hour is, can be a bit more difficult. But if you stick to those, no matter what, stick to those times and think of those times. If say you're running a 30-minute consultation, it's not 30 minutes of treatment. 30 minutes is the time that you have to achieve what you want to achieve. Have that patient leave, get your notes done, get your room reset and ready for the next person. Because one of the things I observe is that people that are trying to give 100%, they'll run late, and then they'll run later, and then they'll run later, and then they end up staying back for 3/4 an hour, and then they go home, and with, like, we didn't used to have this, but with remote access to your notes, you're now going, oh, well, I'm just going to go home, have dinner with my family, I'll do it later tonight. So then you're reigniting those thoughts. You're thinking, right, what did I do at 9 o'clock this morning? And remembering your techniques. Like, I think it's really important for longevity of this profession that you stick to those guidelines, get it done. If you need to put in a break in your first year, like our new grads have got a break in the morning and a break in the afternoon. It's a paid break, so they get to catch up. It's not a break. It is a little break, but it's mostly for catch up. So that in a day-to-day sense, that's my tip. If you're a new grad and you're seeing if you're seeing a small volume of patients, that can be really difficult because you can feel really sluggish and things can feel like they're moving really slowly, and you've got these 5 to 10 patients a week and you're thinking about them heaps. If you've got a big workload and you've maybe taken over someone's and you've got full books, that's another end of the spectrum where you're feeling physically exhausted and there's a lot of patients to manage. There's a lot of things. So I think my tip is to just keep going. It gets easier. If you're training to do a triathlon, doesn't mean you don't stop running and swimming and cycling because it's hard. Like you just keep going, and you know that it's going to get easier. And I'll say it gets easier because of the experience, especially if you're going into a busy practice. That's an awesome setting because you can get through a lot of volume of people very quickly, where you've got that data of memory in your memory bank, where you go, right, I know, oh yeah, I've seen this three or four times already. I know that this is going to pan out. I know what I'm going to do, and you get really efficient. And then my final tip is to unplug. Unplugging right now is so important. It's more important than it's ever been. When you've got if you watch TV and you've got your phone and you're flicking through Instagram, Facebook, email, like there is a lot of information flying around in your head. That's too much. You've got to unplug. They're my main ones.
I couldn't agree more. This next generation, and I call them the Bluetooth babies of the world, or the I generation. They're children below the age of 10. They've never known a world without the internet. So they literally now, with the way that we are so attached, and when you say unplugged, I love that, because we carry our lives around in our hand, and it's really sad and daunting. And I even fall victim to it sometimes myself, because people's lives, our jobs are so accessible. I have this running joke at work that if I can't do it on my phone, I just won't do it. So any endeavor that I can do, whether it's graphic design or writing a blog or mentoring teams or whatever, I usually communicate through my phone because it's always with me all the time. But that is its worst enemy often, is the fact that we do, and little tools like leaving your phone totally in another room, or
turning the Bluetooth off your watch. That was, for me, like, that's next level. Oh my gosh.
Your life notifications are going off on your wrist. But it's hard, and we are all at fault of doing it sometimes. So it's an active thought process now. We actively have to switch off, because we are generally by default plugged in.
I was just going to say default. That's our default.
It's not the other way around. It's not a matter of, okay, okay, I'm going to plug myself in. We need to assume that we are present all the time, but it's not even present in quality time. It's present in noise and headspace, and that's not only in the treatment room, but just in life. There's Facebook groups everywhere that you want to comment on. People get FOMO. Am I going to miss out on? Yes, you are missing out if you're not watching this, by the way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you should unplug except for watching Jade's work. You definitely need to plug in for that.
But I do. I totally agree that you need to unplug, but it is a deliberate thing because we don't do it voluntarily. We have to do it actively.
Yeah. That kind of takes us to the last slide, which, can you see that now?
Yeah.
The last thing is if you've had a trauma, it's what it is, it's a trauma, then you need to debrief and shake it off. And so if you've been through that, I would encourage you to express that to a team leader, a manager, or just another team member, or even shake it off with a friend or a colleague or a partner or whatever you need to do to just, or even literally physically shake it off, because it's a negative energy that's going to impact you in a negative way. And so one of the things that happened with this patient that rang recently, I was so proud of my team. So I checked in with them. It happened on a Friday, so I sort of checked in with them that day and then on the Saturday. And they'd already, there was a receptionist that had dealt with this very, very difficult patient, and this seasoned practitioner had dealt with them, and they'd both been really rattled. And so what happened was I contacted them both on the Saturday, and they both messaged each other, which was I thought was so cool, the fact that they'd recognised that they'd both gone through this, and that they checked in on each other. And then I said to both of them, so what are you doing today to really shake it off? And the practitioner said, I went for a surf this morning, it was so good, just hit the reset button and I feel great. And I was like, awesome, that's fantastic. And the receptionist said that, I said, what are you going to do today? After that, maybe you need to do a boxing session or so. And she said, I might go for a run. And so she did that, which was, I think, a really good way to really shake off a really rough week. And then, so shake it off means shake it off yourself. Shake it off means if you've seen someone in your team go through it, check on them, not just once, check on them multiple times. I don't work Mondays now, so I checked in on them again on Monday, and then again on Tuesday, because we called it the 100-year storm that came into our clinic a couple of weeks ago now. So if you're working with someone that's gone through that, check in on them. If you're a team leader or a manager or a business owner, it's crucial that you check in on your team and also stand by them. What I did in this case, the recent one, was just tell them that I'm proud of them and how they handled the situation, that they 100% have my back. They have my back, but I meant to say that they've got their back. It's kind of like what happened one time. I was in KFC and someone was blasting this junior, like she would have been like 14, and this 17-year-old manager comes out, and I'm thinking, oh, they're just going to give this lady whatever she wants. And the manager says, excuse me, ma'am, please do not talk to my staff like that. If you talk to them again, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And I went, whoa, a 17-year-old KFC manager just did that right now. And I was like, did that, drop the mic because she walked away. And so be that manager that stands by your team. There are cases where you can cool everything down if they're a reasonable patient. This patient was not reasonable. They were very unreasonable. You as a manager, you can come in and you can cool the situation down and maybe shift someone within the patient into, getting treated by someone that's more like, going to clash less, or, there might be a resolution. And if there's not a resolution, tell them where the door is.
Yeah. I totally agree. So, with shaking it off and all those sorts of things, I think there's a lot of conversations about work-life balance and, having those outlets. I think we're all in agreement that to find balance in your life is very, very difficult. And as Brett Weiner talks about, he talks about work-life integration, making it work for you and for what you're wanting. I know some very...
I just love how it's work-life balance. Like, work is not part of life. I just call it life balance. Because I don't know many people that work is not part of their life. So it's about life balance.
And it's also very, very different for everybody. We've also chosen a profession where we're in a service-driven industry where we do need to be seeing people after hours. And for the first few years of our career, you do generally work weekends. And it does suck, but I guess over time, the busier you get, the more in demand you are, and the more in demand you are, you make your patients work around you. But there is a period of time as new graduates where I guess it's fair to say that there probably is less balance on the scale of work and life than there is, I guess, that fun side. But I think it's like anything.
Yeah, so I don't think working hard is not part of, like, that means that your life doesn't have balance. I think if you've got a dream and you've got something you want to achieve, working hard is essential to that. And I work my ass off every single day. That doesn't make my life in balance. I think if it's an addiction, I think, like, we could probably talk about this for hours. I mean, if you're addicted to this and it's all you think about and it's all you dream about and it's, it dictates everything you do, then that is not balance. But if you're working hard and you're working your ass off and you're exhausted at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that you don't have life balance. It doesn't mean you have, like, life balance is not a state of this constant energy and state of nirvana. That's not achievable.
And as I always say, love what you do and you'll never work another day in your life.
Totally.
It's a great quote, I guess, to end on and sort of to wrap it all up, because for the most part, we do love what we do. And if we are struggling with it, then there's usually something in our lives that we need to reflect on, that we need to work on and grow and change. But I wanted to thank you. I guess in summary, we've looked at the difficult patients, setting expectations, communicating, building relationships. Not every single patient is the same,
The effects of not going to the gym for 10 weeks.
I've caked on the COVID kilos. Don't worry, I'm like definitely a little bit chunkier in the shoulders right now. But that's
shoulder pads or something.
That's what they are. They're shoulder pads.
I'm saying I do.
Very seriously though, I did want to thank you for your time. You've certainly given up your time. You've put a lot of, I guess, not only personality into those slides, but thoughts into the way that you've delivered this. And I'm sure that, there are professionals out there across all experience levels that are going to take home from this, whether it be somebody learning and growing from it, or maybe taking some of these concepts to mentor their team. So thank you very, very much. I'll definitely put all your details and links and everything in the video. The good news is this video will be recorded, and if you're watching this afterwards, it's because it's recorded. But there'll also be a platform in GrowthRx soon where you'll be able to go in and download a CPD certificate for your ARPRA records, which is really exciting.
That's so cool. Thanks so much for having me, Jade, and thanks for watching this video.
No worries. Thanks, everybody. Happy Thursday. We'll see you next week, live at lunch. Bye.